This, apparently, is part and parcel of modern-day Europe. The European Commission issued its statement this afternoon, based, it says, on the observations it made during its inspection on the 25th of September and on the information provided by both the UK and Spain.
The Commission has not found evidence to conclude that the checks on persons and goods as operated by the Spanish authorities at the crossing point of La Linea de la Concepción have infringed the relevant provisions of the Union law.
The statement from Brussels effectively clears Spain of any wrongdoing at the Gibraltar frontier. The Chief Minister gave his verdict at a press conference this afternoon.
This finding flies in the face of the reality being experienced by commuters and travellers and will serve only to encourage the sort of bullying tactics that have been characterising the past 4 months at the frontier. The Gibraltar government joins the British government in considering that the recent increased checks are unlawful and politically motivated.
Unsurprisingly, the European Commission would not be drawn on this subject.
I understand that. That's what the statement says. I'm asking you whether you think there was any political motivation, whether or not you believe that these border checks broke European law. Do you think there was any political motivation behind their imposition?
We are looking at facts. And our mission was a fact-finding mission, and this is the result of our mission. This is all I can say about this.
The government nonetheless welcomes the fact that beyond the headline issue of illegality, the EU Commission statement today has also included a series of recommendations which in effect require Spain to change the way that it administers checks at this frontier. It will be recalled that the Commission agreed to become involved in this issue as a result of a call from UK Prime Minister David Cameron to Commission President Senor Barroso. This was the first time that the Commission has involved itself in a Gibraltar matter, having previously preferred to simply refer to issues as being bilateral between the United Kingdom and Spain.
So, what are the recommendations made by Brussels? It says Spain should make better use of its physical space to ensure better traffic fluidity and to increase the number of lanes for vehicles entering and exiting Gibraltar. And rather than random controls, it asks the Spanish authorities to use risk-based profiling to check those people more likely to be smuggling tobacco. In its letter to the UK, Brussels asks that Gibraltar authorities also implement risk-based profiling at the frontier, and it asks that the Gibraltar government optimise legislation and safeguards to contribute to an efficient fight against tobacco smuggling.
We need to ensure that the Tobacco Act is even more robust than it is now in order to ensure that we can continue to do more of that and to ensure that we don't have this problem affecting people in their residential areas or even affecting the area of the entry and exit to Gibraltar. Police officers, Guardia Civil and police and SVA and customs are able to work together directly from, as I call it, copper to copper, and that has always worked well. What I think the Commission is saying, and what we welcome hugely, is that there has to be a structure to that, in the sense that if Gibraltar is able to provide intelligence, then Spain needs to listen to that intelligence so that the checks that she carries out are not random. They are risk-based and they are based on intelligence. We are prepared to work with Spain on that issue, as we are on a number of other issues where we would be happy to continue working around the trilateral table or in the ad hoc forums that are going to be created if we are able to achieve final resolution of the issues that relate to creating those ad hoc fora.
You said that the UK and the Gibraltar governments would not rule out taking legal action if necessary. I think you'd agree it's been a very difficult summer for a lot of people. What would make it necessary? What would make legal action necessary?
Well, I mean, as a lawyer, I can tell you that legal action is always the last resort. and it is not something that produces instant results. The effects that result in legal action becoming necessary sometimes are immediate. For example, if somebody libels you, the moment that they utter the words, the legal action becomes necessary, but the legal action may take 3 or 4 years. It doesn't give you relief. And what we don't need to do is to embark on a course of action that is not going to give relief to people, if it is possible to embark on courses of action which will give practical relief to people. Now, for that reason, what the United Kingdom government has said and what the Gibraltar government will do with the United Kingdom is to pursue legal action if it is not possible to resolve these matters in any other way. And that's why we're not ruling out legal action.
So, legal action is unlikely to be pursued in the next 6 months. The European Commission also called for daily cooperation between the authorities on either side of the border, asking for an exchange of information on tobacco smuggling.
I think it's important that what we do is not designed to in any way impede people's ability to transfer across the frontier freely, as we say should be the case, but which is led by intelligence going to stop people who want to do things across that frontier which they shouldn't be doing, which are illicit.
As border queues have continued and will likely continue for the time being, fewer Gibraltarians, I think it's fair to say, fewer Gibraltarians are crossing into Spain at the moment. What's your message to these people who feel like that they don't want to risk getting caught up in a very long queue, and also, and perhaps moreover, to those who have to cross the frontier because they live on the other side?
Well, they will know that there is a government in Gibraltar and there is a municipality in Linea that have huge amounts of goodwill to try and see the frontier flow work, to try and see a return to what should be normality, and which we've only experienced sporadically at Gibraltar Frontier. This is the important thing to understand. It's not as if Gibraltar Frontier has always operated normally and now we're finding that it's not. It's that Gibraltar Frontier operates normally only sporadically, but regularly we have had these problems.
That's a depressing thought, though, isn't it?
Well, it is the depressing reality of every year since the frontier opened for vehicles in 1985. Now, there are some periods when it is better flowing, some periods when it is not. I recall the period that the Partido Popular were last in government between 1997 and 2003, that it was actually very bad indeed, and it resulted at its worst moment with the joint sovereignty negotiations, because the Spanish government and the British government were then very close. Luckily, it's the Gibraltar government and the British government that are now very close. We're not going in that direction, but we are once again suffering the common denominator between those very bad frontier queues in the late 90s and early 2000s, and now, namely, a Partido Popular government.
The Gibraltar government has published the European Commission's letter, which GBC has put online. It makes for interesting reading, as undoubtedly would Spain's, should they decide to publish it.